BST 2016. This is interviews, music reviews, and more. This is The Hodder Show.
What is up, everybody? We are Rolling Audio here today on episode 330 of The Hodder Show. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you so very much for tuning in and clicking that play button on today's episode of the podcast. I have a really fun episode for you here today, as I try to every single week right here on The Hodder Show. I'm sitting down with CM Peters and Tanner Wood, who are the co-creators and hosts and voice actors and producers and a lot of other stuff behind the scenes of the badass new audio drama podcast, Baseline Feed. Now, you're going to learn all about this brand new podcast and why I love it so much and am so adamant about putting my full support behind it, because these are two very talented people who are also just really great people that I have met through the Grey Rooms Discord who deserve your support. And we dive into what got them into the podcast game, kind of what was the catalyst of starting out this podcast, and what they're trying to do for people who want to get into the voiceover acting / audio drama / narration field. And we have a lot of fun in this conversation. So I hope that you enjoy it. But before we jump in, I want to thank everybody for their support on last week's episode of the show, my chat with Cassie Fertit of the Grey Rooms. And that was a lot of fun to get to chat with the wizard behind the curtain, the one who lurks in the shadows, so to speak, of the Grey Rooms. Cassie is an absolute badass and does so much for that podcast, it being my favorite podcast. And it was a absolute blast getting to chat with her. So thank you very much again to Cassie and the entire Grey Rooms family for all of their support of this podcast. You know how much I love the Grey Rooms. I could sit here for 10, 15 minutes and talk about how much I love the Grey Rooms, but I'm not going to do that today because I'm excited to get into my chat with Tanner and CM right now from Baseline Feed. Let's get into it. So as you guys know, I am a humongous fan of audio drama podcasts of all kinds. So when I hear that there's a new one coming into the fold and it's being co-created by two people that I have a huge amount of respect for, I get super excited, and I cannot wait to chat with these two because they have an awesome podcast that's still very new, and we're going to dive into how the podcast started and where the podcast is going to go from here and what it's all about. I could not be happier to be joined right now by the co-creators of the Baseline Feed podcast, CM Peters and Tanner Wood. Guys, what's going on?
Hey.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Oh, not much. Just sitting here on this wonderful evening chatting with you two.
It's good. It's a wonderful evening.
Yes, it is.
A wonderful evening. Yes, sir.
This is very good, sir. So it's fun because we all, just to jump in, we all met through the Grey Rooms Discord, which I'm sure you're going to hear a lot about during this episode, folks. It all comes back to the Grey Rooms on this podcast now.
It's their fault.
Wonderful community, great bunch of guys. They sure do know how to point their members in the correct direction and encourage them to be better people, better podcasters, better writers, and voice actors. And it's been a wonderful ride, you know, being part of them, being part of that
community. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's so fun because when I joined into that community right away, I was like, okay, there's a cast of characters in that community, and we could sit here all night picking out people and giving them shout outs. But right away, I found out that number one, CM is Canadian. So
yes.
I was like, yay, a Canadian.
How are you, eh?
Yeah. How are you, eh? What about that?
Yeah.
So I got excited about that, of course, but then also Tanner, or as I knew him at the time, just Wolf, was like super cool right away, and I was like, okay, cool. So this is like, you know, like almost like the original roomies that I kind of got to link up with. So it's super exciting to be able to just dive into this with you guys, and with you, CM, you're in the world of media, being a radio personality. So it was cool to kind of like speak with you about that a couple times. And then Tanner, like, you were wanting to kind of get into this world. So when I think that Tanner, I think you had sent the podcast to me right before you guys launched the first episode. And I was super excited because I was like, yo, like, what is this?
Yeah, and we had actually gotten our first episode completely done, whether it was voice recording, editing, publishing, all of that. And I think that was about, oh God, that was not even a month after we clicked the go button on our podcast hosting site. And I was like, hey, we're just trying to get the word out. I knew you through the Grey Rooms Discord. You're a great guy. You seemed like you had your own everything together. And just going from, I guess at that point, what one podcaster to another, like, hey, let's spread the word. I love your voice, man. Like, let's get it, let's work something out. And it just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of went from there.
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, I appreciate that. And was so cool for me because anytime I see people that I know are creative or can be creative jump into this podcast world, like I get super, super excited, especially when it's like, like these guys are going to absolutely kill it. So CM, who kind of came up with the concept of this podcast? Who approached who?
Honestly, I can't remember who approached who exactly, but I knew that for a long time I've wanted to do a podcast because I'm a radio host,
right?
And I have a frame that I have to follow, and a podcast, you don't. You can say whatever you want because it's your podcast. But I was aiming at first for like a talk radio style podcast. And for some reason, Tanner and I started talking about it. And he said, yeah, I want to do something like that too. So we started exchanging about that, discussing our ideas. And he kind of convinced me to do like an audio drama because he knows I also write on top of being a radio host. And I'm like, okay, I might have a story or two that could fit. And we started looking at that, and then ideas kept popping everywhere, and ta-da.
The talk show thing would have been kind of cool to hear from you guys too, myself personally, but I think the audio drama was really cool.
It's still in the back of my head. At some point it's going to happen.
But that's also just to ask the question, just because you brought it up, like what kind of radio are you doing in your everyday life? Like, is it like a talk show radio? Is it just like top 40 stuff? Like, what are you usually doing?
It's AC, mostly AC, contemporary, adult.
Cool. Okay.
Musical with some talk radio, but the talk radio part is mostly in the morning. So I do mostly a musical show, like what we call the mid-afternoon and the drive. So I do both those shows, and I also host a country show. Y'all,
right on there, little lady.
Yeah, come on down.
So I don't know why, but hearing you do the country accent just made me chuckle.
Yeah, I could do it more, but my roommate would kill me. She hates it.
Oh, geez. Well, and that's what's so fun about this whole thing is like, because you bring that experience, especially with like how long you've been doing radio, like there's this experience that you bring to the table and this level of confidence, even coming into this interview to talk about it. Like you were just kind of like, oh yeah, like whatever. And I think Tanner was a little more, a
little bit nervous,
a little bit terrified, to be honest with you.
So on that note, Tanner, like what made you want to get into this podcast world?
Oh boy. Well, again, I know we harken back to the old Grey Rooms, but
it all comes back.
It really does. There's no stopping it. Jason does a lot of his editing and I can respect that from a creative point of view, but he does this live editing for the patrons that he's got for the Grey Rooms podcast. And, I became a patron and it really enjoyed all the bonus content that he had. And I took part in some of the live editing that he did. And I am a learner by either doing or watching and listening and talking to somebody. And that kind of inspired me and kind of gave me that little bit of push to actually try and do something, because I've been going through this little part in my life where I'm, mid-20s. I don't know what the heck I'm doing with my life. So I'm trying to figure it out. And, I did a little bit of voice work for them. I narrated a Bane episode for them, which was really weird. If you like cats, you should never own cats because they're evil little devils. And then I got to do, a one-liner for him. And then, the Graham, the angel of the Grey Rooms, beautiful human being, wonderful voice. He's handsome.
Praise be to Bob.
Praise to Bob. Oh God. And then, so he pointed me in the direction of, some online auditioning sites. I did some stuff on there, and it turned out okay. I got some really cool unpaid jobs. It was great. And I was like, man, this isn't going to work for me. So I did some looking around on how to become a voice actor, how to start the voiceover business. And it looked really tedious and scary. And it's like, you got to own your own LLC, this and that. I was like, man, that's a lot of legal stuff. So I just listened, and then I started looking up some of the voice actors that I know. And one of them happened to be Seth MacFarlane. Great voice, buttery, creative guy, weird as all get out. Good Lord. But I found an interview with him one time, and he said that he was in the same situation where he was looking for jobs, doing auditions, putting them out there. He couldn't get anything back. And then he talked, I don't remember who he talked to, but he talked to somebody and was like, you know what? The best way that we're going to do this is create our own content. So I was like, holy crap, I've learned a lot from watching people and talking to them and understanding. I did a little bit of work with this in high school. I actually took in the computer applications class where we did like live news stuff for the announcements or whatever. And that was fun. So I got to do a little bit of behind the scenes stuff there, but we had actually dealt with some of the Adobe stuff, whatever, behind the scenes editing. And I was like, you know what? I've written a story and a half, I guess. It's not really a full one yet. And I was like, why don't I try and do something in terms of audio drama? Because it's been really cool. I listened to the Grey Rooms and I listened to the No Sleep podcast. I listened to the Lore with Aaron Mahnke. Wonderful. All those things were great. And I was like, you know what? I can do it. And then I listened to your interview with Brooks Bigley. Oh, what an inspirational hour and a half of my life.
That Holy man smokes. I want him to just follow me around all day and just yell at me to do stuff.
he's like the embodiment of Shia LaBeouf with the flames behind him saying, "Do it, do it." And it's good, and that really inspired me. And then I showed that to my wife, and she's like, you know what, you can do these things. Absolutely, kick its ass. So I did, and I did like a little trial run with some half-assed story that I wrote. I thought it was kind of fun. And then I was like, hey, I know CM Peters, because her and I, we hang out sometimes. We play Dead by Daylight. We just kind of shoot the shit after, movie night. And I reached out to her. I was like, hey, do you want to be part of this? Because I knew that she had some experience in the radio field. So, and then sure enough, like not even probably 25 seconds later, she was like, hell yeah, let's fucking do it. Mm-hmm. And that's just kind of where it came off. And it was a short trip, it might have taken about 2.5 weeks or so, because I get bored really easily about things that I can't do. And it just kicked off, and we sat down, threw some ideas around, made an ACAST thing, and it's just been a wonderful ride from there. I'll
add to that like Tanner, I wanted to do some voices because on top of radio, I also do narration, and I've been wanting to get into voice acting for a long time. And I'm like, why not have the opportunity to do it with my own stories as well? So it was all perfect coming together and, make that podcast happen.
Well, and that's what was so fun for me was just because I know that just from having conversations with you guys that you both had an interest in this world. And it was like, for you, CM, like it was not much of a stretch to be like, well, yeah, like when you're in the radio world, making that jump into the voiceover world, like it's not that far-fetched of an idea.
Not really.
That, right? Yeah.
Not really.
So just out of curiosity, Sam, kind of what got you started in that radio world?
I got my degree in college in French Lit, and I was bored out of my mind. I started, what do you call it in the US? A trade school, I think it's called, for to learn a job, and was in the pastry school, like to be a pastry chef.
Ooh,
totally different.
Pastry school. Okay.
Yeah, and after 4 months, I'd had enough, and I dropped out because I told myself if I stayed there, I'm going to hate my life. So I had decided to work full time. Haven't told my parents because I still lived at my parents back then. And I saw in the newspaper, because my dad was looking for a new job, and I saw this ad for radio school. I'm like, I can do that. And I got in like in the nick of time, in 3 days. 3 days of school was starting. and I got in. It was the best year of schooling of my life, and I've been doing radio. I'm in my 20th year. Like on June 3rd, it's going to be 20 years since I started doing radio.
Wow. That's fantastic. Well, I mean, congrats on that too, because
Thank you.
That's a big deal. Like not everyone who gets in, especially so have you kind of always done the on-air thing, and did you start off kind of doing behind the scenes stuff?
On air directly. I started I want to say the first 2 weeks I was doing the tech stuff. I was mostly the producer.
Okay.
But after 2 weeks, I was thrown into the fire, and I started hosting by myself. So
that's literally for 20 years you've been doing. Have you been doing solo radio hosting?
Oh yeah. Solo.
That just blows my mind. Like
I've done solo. I've done teams of 3, teams of 2. Okay. I've done commercial producing. I've done musical logging. I think I've done everything in that radio station except cleaning it.
Which, I mean, in fairness, the last couple of years, probably at some point you were wiping down.
Yeah, I cleaned my office.
So let's be real.
I've cleaned my own office and the console because we had to after every show.
Yeah.
Disinfect and everything. But yeah, I've pretty much done everything. And I've been doing narration for a phone company for, I want to say, since July 2011 or something. So there's certain places when you call, it's my voice. That's like the little messages, like the promo stuff. Oh, we have this on sale for this amount of time, blah, blah, blah. And while you're on call waiting.
And that's actually the script. It goes, we have this on sale, blah, blah, blah.
Totally. Every time.
Explicitly written out as blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Creative freedom.
That's right. Exactly.
Well, that's awesome. Like I knew your background in radio, obviously, because we've talked about that before, but I didn't know about the narration thing. And that's, again, no surprise. Like you have a fantastic voice and a fantastic narration voice. So again, not a stretch to get into this world of narration,
really.
But we have already kind of discussed a little bit about how the podcast started, but what was really like, because what's so awesome about Baseline Feed is you guys advertise it as it's a podcast that essentially, well, I'll read it right from the thing here. Here we break the barrier holding new writers, voice actors, and producers hostage. This is a platform to transform no-name talent into big-name professionals.
Yep.
What is kind of Tanner, you spoke a little bit about how some of you trying to get into this voiceover world, you maybe had some reservations about that. Why is it so important to you guys to have this platform for people like yourselves who want to really break into this world?
Well, see, I know that even I might have kind of told you before, but just being a startup guy, it sucks. Oh, God.
Right.
You end up going to these audition sites and you might get 1 or 2 of them, and it's awful. I know a lot of folks, even through personal experience or online experience, that were very interested in it, and they just, could never find the opportunity to get their skills out there. And even getting with a local radio station is tough sometimes. I've tried it, I know. So having that opportunity for those knuckleheads to even submit something or become friends with somebody who can get their voice out there is difficult.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? I'll be the guy. I know that sounds really selfish. CM she's been great. We'll be the platform.
Team.
We'll be the team. We'll be the platform.
Part of the team. Right. I know what you're saying.
And invite them to be part of that team and just build themselves up and just be that group that can lift each other up to get out there and become professionals, because there's a lot of demand for it, especially going into this newer age of, God forbid, AI. Oh, geez. All of those things they're pre-recorded, and you need voices for that. And to have these people with these either recognizable or unrecognizable voices to get out there and get involved and be part of all of that is fun. And to be a platform for that is really cool. Plus all these really cool stories that writers have. Oh my God. We've had, even in the few weeks that we've been alive as a podcast, we've gotten considerably weird stories submitted to us. And
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about. We've had some weird stories, man, that have been submitted.
Listen,
and to
I
get those
thought the
stories out
story
there,
about the monster in the McDonald's ball pit was all right. But if you guys are saying it's weird, then all right.
oh, we've got one. It is
I'm
a weird
sure.
one. I mean,
That's,
I'm not
that's-
trying to
Oh,
jump like little green furry hands pulling on my toes.
Oh,
That's not
geez,
what I
okay.
want.
Okay.
No, but we got some goofy stories, but to get them out there is good. I mean, it's fun and entertaining, and hopefully we get to communicate with some of these authors that have submitted things to us to get their voices heard.
Mhm.
You know, there's crazy ideas, and like I say, in the beginning of every Baseline Feed episode, every story comes from somewhere. And to get that somewhere story out there is it's a weird, like, there's a weird like pride that comes from that. Be like, look, we are the ones that are able to help you and get to where you want to be as either a professional or an amateur or a hobbyist or whatever. You know, let us help you.
Yeah. If we're one step up for you, then let us be that step.
It's important in that world, especially if you're trying to get in like the actual audio drama world, like to have some credits, right? If you reach out to a show to be like, hey, I'd like to offer my services. I've been on this podcast. They go and look at this podcast. And, you know, with respect to some other podcasts out there, it's like maybe the audio quality isn't up to snuff. Maybe the scripts are kind of, and maybe this person's super talented, but maybe they don't have a great microphone, or there's little things they're doing that just doesn't quite translate into that narration or audio drama world. And to have people like yourselves who have, especially like CM, like with your experience, I mean, you'd be able to point people in that direction. And Tanner, like with your just natural talent, you know, like I know that you're still fairly new to the game, but like with your natural, just God-given talent and charisma, you know, it's like,
thanks.
I appreciate
that.
It's something that, I mean, just to be brutally honest with everybody, I sent something to you to get your critique and opinion on it. Cause I was like, that's just how much I respect your, cause I was like, I look at how far you've already come in such a short time. It's just like, you know, this guy's like, he knows what he's doing. So like, hey, let me get your thoughts on this. And that's something that is so important to people who are trying to get into this world, either in a writing sense, in a voice acting sense, even maybe a producing sense. Like it's super important to have that platform and those people like yourselves to kind of provide that.
Sure. And even when you say the producing sense, you know, I know that we would like to involve other folks with even just like bonus episodes or, you know, shorter ones to get involved and showcase what they can do. I mean, that's why we're here is we're basically a showcase. We're a stage. I think that's the point of what we agreed on to do. And even being able to showcase other folks' skills, we can hone and better our own, whether it's narrating our voices or getting information out there. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us.
Yeah, exactly. We have people sending in stories, but some of them are now inquiring about, hey, do you need voice actors? Yes. Send in a demo. Eventually we'll have our own story for them to record. So like it's an open buffet.
Exactly. And you could
without all the rotten shrimp, mind you.
Yeah.
it's a good buffet. It's a good
Yes,
quality
it's chill.
buffet.
We actually have ice underneath the shrimp this time.
Yes,
Keeping
we
it
do.
cold. That's important. Well, and that's what's so fun about it is, you know, you might have someone send in a story and you're like, wow, we really love this story. And they said, hey, here's a demo reel I have. And maybe their voice doesn't, in your opinion, doesn't really suit this story. But you're like, hey, this person has a really interesting voice. And then
They may fit for something else.
Exactly. You might be able to come back to them and say, hey, I know we didn't use it for your story, but here's this story I think you'd really do well at. Like that's a part of it too. You know, when you guys have that just right away, even, you know, with a podcast like this, just for kind of calling a spade, like some people might view it as like, hey, this is a good opportunity for me to just do all this stuff myself and be involved with every episode and do all the narration myself and blah, blah, blah. And already at this point, you guys, like, you haven't done that. You're very much, when you say we want to give people an opportunity, like you already are. And it's just, I really am excited to keep seeing the growth of this show.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and honestly, like it is a really fun opportunity to do that with the new writers, especially just because crazy stories. And part of me is actually looking forward to some of the short stories that you've been writing, TJ. I kind of want you to be part of it. I'm going to be honest with you. This is me kissing your ephemeral butt. But
we need a story.
Yeah, you've got the voice, you've got the idea, you've got the creativity. Like even just having this podcast on, God forsakes, for whatever 300 plus episodes, that's crazy. You know, they're and with it comes that commitment, and having the commitment gives you that drive to be better. And we can really appreciate that, especially if you're willing to take a few tips from, you know, scrubs that aren't like me, who aren't entirely sure what they're doing.
Well, and that's the thing too. I mean, thank you. Anything I can ever do to help in any stretch of the imagination, you know, I'm not someone who, just to be, this is going to come off super jaded, but in the sense that I have been doing this podcast for 6 years, like it's not often anymore that I want to get behind a brand new podcast this early, because it's happened in the past, and 10, 12 episodes in, they're like, oh, screw this, bye. But I'm like, I know that's not going to happen here, just because I know your guys' passion and how much you are just already dedicated to this and how much you're working at it. Like, so it's exciting for me. And if there's, like I said, anything I can ever do, you know, I would be honored and happy to.
Trust me, we'll call on you.
That's it. Well, that's awesome. And just to go back for a second too, speaking on kind of the beginnings of the podcast, the first episode that you guys dropped is called The Cargo.
Yes.
And I want to talk about this because CM, you had a really big, crucial role in this entire episode, because not only were you the star of the show, but you also wrote the story. Yes. So I'm just curious, kind of, was it a conscious effort to start off the first episode with the, hey, let's do something that's an original, let's kind of show, because also Tanner, you did the narration for it. So it's like, hey, let's maybe kind of show off what we can do a little bit and then go from there. Was that kind of a conscious effort on your guys' part?
I would say that we weren't sure what to record at first, but we knew it needed to be original, because getting the rights to a story that already exists can be difficult. So I'm like, okay, let me look at what I have. I looked at what I had and I'm like, I don't have much. But then I realized that I had Cargo, which was written for an anthology, but the rights had reverted back to me. So I could do whatever I want with it. So I look at this, okay, 2,000 words. I could do what, maybe we thought 30 minutes or so. It ended up being 15 minutes?
Yeah, it was about 15 total.
Yeah, 15 minutes. So we're like, okay, so based on that, this is what we'd need from other stories. So yeah, we just started with Cargo and it went super well. Tanner was super interested in the story as well, so excited about it. So it's fun as the author and as the voice person that the producer is so interested by it.
It was a really fun story to work with. It was very sci-fi, very almost not really mind trippy, but like it comes from a different perspective, because a lot of the sci-fi stories come from, you know, humans.
Yeah.
So we basically got to see it from an invasion, not, I guess I don't want to give it away. That was terrible. I'm so sorry I did that. Kind of an invasion story based on the folks coming from outside Earth, and the way that they communicated and the way that they talked to each other and the way that they thought about their environment and what they were doing was just so fun to work with. And not only the story and the characters, but also the knuckleheads that got involved, whether it was some guy from work or my brother got to do a voice, and then we're working with them to actually make this story for the lack of a better phrase, come to life and bring it from what CM actually had imagined when she first wrote it, and to sharing it with literally the rest of the world that was fun. I loved it, and it was an absolute blast.
And as the author, once it was done listening to my story, I was like, oh yeah, that's totally what I envisioned. That was awesome.
That's fantastic to hear. I was just about to ask, how did you? So that's cool to hear. And what's so fun about that story as like the first one, it's like you just come out of the gate swinging. Like when I heard it, like I remember I messaged you, Tanner, and I was like, holy shit. Like I knew it was going to be
over here.
I was like, I knew it was going to be good, but I was like, yo, like
this is some top level stuff. What's up?
That's what I said. I literally was like if you told me that a producer and someone who had 20 years of sound design experience did this, I'd be like, yeah, like, okay, sure. That makes sense. And I mean, obviously again, having Sam involved, that also lends itself to that.
But he does all the audio. I'm barely involved in the audio part, to be honest, besides the voice. And he works so hard. You should see him going.
I actually had the pleasure a little bit the one night to watch him kind of sort of do his thing. And I was
tried.
I was blown away. I remember saying like, you have that many tracks? And he was like, yeah. But I was like, this is Audacity. Like, I didn't even know Audacity could handle that many tracks. Like, holy shit.
The poor program just struggles and struggles on the thing, the tracks and clips that I'm throwing at it. Like it's just, it takes, I would say hours, but it takes minutes on minutes of rendering that stuff. Like,
right.
My little laptop is just burning up over here. I'm going to upgrade or something.
By the end of it, it's trying to export that huge file. It's just
yeah, and then I'm trying to push it as MP3 insane in quality, and it's just like, I don't know what to do.
Why are you doing this to me, Father? Like, please stop. This is not going to work. But what's so fun too, in the standpoint of sound design, like that story lent itself so well to sound design too, because there's like an alarm going on and there's explosions and people are injured. So they're yelling. And, was that something that for you, Tanner, like, was that something too, that you kind of immediately, when you read it, you started kind of seeing and hearing those things? And did that kind of play a role in picking that episode as well for the first one?
Oh God, absolutely. Going from, even just writing a crummy story that I submitted to the Grey Rooms, by the way, which would be super cool if they accepted.
It's not crummy. It's good.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But going from somebody who professionally writes, Cassie, hi, vote for me. Going from writing something that, and in, I guess, those terms of quality, and then reading something that somebody who professionally writes and produces these kinds of things, being able to use that and then turn it into like watching a movie with your eyes closed is kind of what it is. And being able to imagine those sci-fi effects, or the Stargate SG-1. Oh God, I feel old now. Stargate SG-1 kind of feeling Stargate. Sounds, and Stargate. Teal'c's my boy. And being able to use those sounds, it was fun. It was great, and then I could imagine myself not necessarily looking through the eyes of Shekinah herself, but being that fly on the wall, watching her hide, or listening to the guys walking around and searching and raising their guns and hearing the vehicles riding around outside. Like, that was fun. And it was inspiring because, again, going back to the Grey Room, sorry, watching the live editing and listening to the things that go on there and listening to every episode of that dang podcast. It's great. Ooh. And just being inspired by the ability of not necessarily an individual, but a platform or a medium to even explain certain stories to people through their earballs is great. And and having the drive to want to do something like that, it's just been so cool. But I guess to answer your question, yes. Simply.
Yes.
Yes. It's been great.
It's been really great. I've really been enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was very cool. Yeah. Yeah, she did an awesome job writing that stuff, and then her ability to stuff sound effect prompts in there and basically direct me from a writer's point of view it's awesome. God, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, and something else too that I want to go back to you for a second, Sian, because something else that you did for the episode was the actual artwork for the episode.
Oh,
which,
yes. Oh,
and
yes.
it is so important. Call back to my episode with Cassie last week. Like, artwork is so important to an episode. And again, when I saw the artwork for this, I went, what is going on here? This is beautiful and just fantastic. And it's sci-fi fantasy, kind of like, whoa, like what's going on here? Is that something you've always had an interest in as well? Kind of the graphic design and stuff like that?
I've been learning actually from an artist friend of mine for the last, I want to say 6-7 years. Like, it's always something I wanted to learn, but I have no talent in drawing. And none whatsoever. But graphics gives me that ability, like to play with pictures and backgrounds and everything. And I've been teaching myself over time how to do it, play with fonts, play with colors. And I'm like, okay, when we talk, because I didn't know at first we'd need graphics for this. And then Tanner said, well, for Acast, we need graphics. I'm like, okay, let me try something. And I came back with that. And he was like, what?
And she absolutely just completely knocked it out of the park with all of her artwork. I mean, whether it's with Cargo or The Worst of the Worst, or I won't say it, but the upcoming episodes as well. Oh,
and
I'm absolutely props to you, CM.
It's just, thank you. I'm inspired because I've read the stories and I know, like, I get inspiration from certain bits of it. And I'm like, okay, this would be cool. Okay, I can try this. And it works when it sometimes it all comes together. Sometimes it takes me hours. Sometimes it takes me 5 minutes. So it depends on inspiration.
And it's a fun creative outlet as well.
Oh, yeah.
If you're writing something and you're like, I picture this for the cover art, you can potentially now be like, hey, here's
here's a sideline.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I do that when I write as well. Like, some people ask what's my method. In my case, when I write a book, a novella, a story, whatever, it's like seeing a movie in my head and just describing the movie. That's how I work. So, ta-da.
So that's it. Ta-da.
Yeah, ta-da.
Da-da-da.
Da-da-da. Yeah.
La-la. Something else, and I'm definitely, I want to ask you before we sign off here today a little later on about your writing outside of the podcast and that, but just still sticking with the podcast here. Mm-hmm. You guys had mentioned that there was also, well, I guess Tanner, you mentioned that there was a couple quote unquote knuckleheads involved in this episode. Yeah, so I just wanted to ask. So aside from yourselves, you also had John Michael Travis and William Wood involved in this. So who are these two knuckleheads as you prescribe?
So these knuckleheads. All right. So John Michael Travis, he doesn't like me saying John Michael because it makes him sound pretentious. These are his words, not mine. Love the guy. He's a great dude. Beautiful voice. God, he reminds me of Seth MacFarlane, and I've had an absolute affinity for the man. Just because I love his voice, I love his work. But he absolutely killed it as the dying commander.
Yes.
And it's real fun because even at work, because he and I work together, my wife and I work together, my dad works there, and my brother-in-law, we're like a family troop that just kind of we work, whatever.
Taking over.
Yeah, well, we're not supposed to say that on the air. But John, he's a fun guy, cool guy to drink with, loves his dogs, this and that, whatever. But then my brother came in, and it's really funny because when we were kids, we would actually have the old timey, like the small, like the mini cassette player, like the mini cassettes. You know what I'm talking about. You guys are older.
Oh, yeah.
And we would have the little silver tape recorder, and we would record stories about our dogs, about ants, about whatever. And we would make these sound effects. And after we did his recording for Elgin, the elder in the story of the Cargo, he came out of the booth and he was like, holy shit, man, This is like exactly when we were kids, except way cooler. And I couldn't help having this giant shit-eating grin on my face and be like, yes, this is exactly what we were meant to do. And so not only that, knucklehead, but I actually brought this up to my dad, and he was like, yo, man, you know, this is the stuff that me and my brother used to do when we were kids. Like we would have like the little, I don't know what kind of technology they had, probably the little recorders or whatever, but they would do the same thing. And he's like, dude, I'm excited for you. Like, this is the coolest thing you guys could have done. You know, if they would have had the technology back then, podcasting is what they would have done, you know, audio dramas and telling stories,
right.
and being able to bring these guys that used to do this as kids into the podcast and get them to voice characters that, you know, other folks have imagined and actually bring them to life is exciting for them and me and CM and everybody involved.
And yet it all comes back to the fact that you guys are providing that platform for really anybody who has the talent, really.
Yes, absolutely.
Or who has the desire and who wants to learn.
Not that we want to exploit their talent. We just want to encourage the talent.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely. You know, because that being that platform is it's hard to stand up on the soapbox and actually get your voice out there. So we want to be that for them.
Well, and I mean, just going off the first episode, I was excited because I know that if you guys continue to do what you're doing, like you're going to be that. And I mean, just having gotten to know you guys over the last few months, it's like, it's just so I right away, like even, you know, when I was doing the graphic up for the episode with my guy, shout out to Jason, I was like telling him about the podcast and he's like, you're really excited about this. And I'm like, yeah, because like, there's not enough people out there who are willing to give people a real shot who could do something. They just need, again, even just that person to give them a polite critique and give them tips, not just, nah, get out of here. Nah. Like, come on. Like, nah.
Give me something to get better. Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey,
you know, that wasn't very good, but here's how you can make it better.
And hearkening back to the whole reason why we picked the name for what our podcast is, we would love to serve as a baseline to start from.
That's fantastic. Well, and what's so cool too is looking now at the second episode that you guys uploaded, the worst of the worst, which is in 2 parts.
It is. Yeah.
And I'm really excited for the second part because there's a little bit of a cliffhanger happening, but not a cliffhanger that like made me violently angry, like a good cliffhanger. Like it was like, holy shit, what's going to happen? I got to tune in. And as you guys are hearing this episode, if you are listening on Thursday, the episode actually is dropping in just a couple days on Saturday. So I'm very excited about that. But walk me through the worst of the worst. Talk a little bit about kind of like who wrote it, who's starring in it, because it was fun because obviously the first episode that you guys did that wasn't, you know, a story written by either of you and that neither of you are narrating or starring in.
Exactly. The story is written by Katie Tatry. It was part of an anthology, the same anthology that published The Cargo for me.
Nice.
It was surrounding what's really behind Area 51. And in her mind, Area 51 is not used for aliens or experiments. It's used to house the deadliest serial killers in the United States. That's why they stopped killing. Either they're dead or they're there, imprisoned. So she started her story with that and so on. What you've heard in the first episode. And it's narrated by Evan Jaffe, who's also one of our advisors, if I can say it like that. He's a collaborator. And there's voices by, well, actually, Katie Tatry does the voice of Laura. There's Carrie Taylor. There's a few other people, and among them, Jason Wilson.
Yes, I personally... Anyone who, of course, listens to my podcast regularly knows that I am a massive Jason Wilson fanboy. Grey Rooms in general, but especially Jason Wilson, of course. And don't you shake your head at me. Come on. Like, I see you. Tanner's down there shaking his head. You can't see him. It's all jokes, folks.
Of course.
But I was really excited to hear that he was in that episode. So I have to ask, obviously, I want to talk about everyone who was in this episode, but just to start off with, I'm like, how cool was it, considering that, you guys are both such fans of the Grey Rooms, to have him be involved in this?
Exciting. It was really exciting because he's like, we look up to him. He does voices for his own podcast. So it's super interesting to bring him in. And we're bringing him in also in a role that's kind of different from what he does. He's there. Yes, he plays an army man, but he plays the love interest, which is not something he's done very often. So Tanner reached out to him because Tanner does the most of the casting. So reached out to him, and Jason said, why not?
It was it was fun. It was definitely an honor. And, honestly, when he said that he actually agreed to run a couple of lines for us. Nick doesn't necessarily have a lot of parts in the stories. I say stories because, 2 parts.
2 parts. Yeah.
This part 2's coming out in 2 days. So having him in those parts and those lines and having him basically out of character, whether it's as his initial character in season 1 or, his psychopathic character in season 2 and beyond, like having him as the love interest was weird. And it was nice. It was good. It was
refreshing.
And, definitely refreshing, right, for sure. And, as a new, I don't really want to call myself a sound engineer, but the guy that edits these episodes and puts them all together, working with his voice I was losing my shit as a fangirl. I mean, I was giggling and squealing the whole damn time. And, honestly, it was a good time, and I was excited.
That's awesome. I mean, again, definitely cool to hear. And I mean, like you both said, in a role that, we maybe wouldn't normally hear from him. And I mean, he can't help but anytime Jason speaks, he's the warden. Like just, it's just like, hey, it's Nick.
That voice.
You know what to do. It's like, why is the warden calling someone and telling them what to do? Like, what's going on? Like,
oh, God, tell me what to do. That's the fangirl part of me. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I get it. I'd be the same way. But talking about the narrator, that was Evan, who, I do know from the Grey Rooms Discord as well. How was that? Is this something that he's done a lot of, or?
Now Evan he's actually fairly new to the whole narration voiceover kind of thing, and he's gotten his feet wet a little bit. And I think that, what we planned to do with our podcast is provide a platform for starters and provide what kind of help and what kind of pointers that we can give to people to actually get their voice and their name out there. And, honestly, Evan, he jumped in and he wanted to be part of it, and I can respect that. He put his time and money into, or I guess resources into being able to record and become part of this project with us. And I think that it's been great for us in terms of being able to provide a prime example that, somebody who's willing to accept help and accept direction, it's been an absolute blast working with the guy.
Yeah.
I can absolutely see him in future roles for us.
Possibly as a writer as well.
Yeah, exactly.
He writes.
He's written a couple of, I don't know if he's in a couple. I think he's had one published with the Grey Rooms, a couple other submissions, with them, and he's written quite a few other things. And hopefully, if we can convince him through this interview or outside of it to maybe write something for us as well. And I think that he has a very fun, very, very comedic writing style that would be fun to work with and cast and act and all that. And he's been an absolute blast to work with. I'm going to be honest with you.
I agree.
Evan, it's your buddy TJ here. And I want you to submit a story because I want to hear it. So get on it. Come on. I'll be waiting.
Give me your words. This is your prompt, my dude.
Give me your words.
Come on, BB. We have a strange relationship. I'm sorry.
Well, the thing is, too, is like, everyone's buddies, everyone's friends, right?
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
like, it's just, it's hard to keep things super serious and professional all the time, when it's like, hey, yes, the show is badass and it's you guys are very serious about your craft, but then also you're just
we don't need to be up,
right?
Yeah, we don't need to be uptight.
Right. And part of this whole podcast is actually building relationships.
Right.
And honestly, podcasting is considerably smaller community than you would imagine it would be. And building those relationships in that community has been huge. We've got actually a couple, I think, oh gosh, what is her name? Lori? Katie. Nope. What is her name? Carrie. Carrie. Carrie she actually has her own podcast, and
yes.
she became part of ours, and I think that was really cool. And she played an amazing job as Dr. Bolton in both part 1 and part 2.
Mm-hmm.
And shout out to Carrie Taylor, and she's
Abnormal Adventures is the name of her podcast.
And she's been great. I mean, just awesome, submitting lines and having fun with them and actually becoming the character has been cool for her. And just being able to work with folks that have actually been in the business for a while is cool. And this is again, me fangirling about being somebody who gets to work with folks like that.
Well, that's awesome. And I mean, again, I can't say enough wonderful things about the show, and I know that you guys are going to keep just getting better and better. I cannot wait for the next episode that again comes out in just a couple of days, The Worst of the Worst Part 2. I'm looking forward to the conclusion of this story. I'm looking forward to see you guys just keep getting better and better, working with new, authors and new voiceover people, and just I'm really excited, and I was really happy to get you guys both on for this so that we could kind of have a chat and have some fun and have some laughs. And I appreciate awesome, your guys' time.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Now, real quick, where can the people find the Baseline Feed podcast if they would like to check it out?
We have our own website now, baselinefeed.com. We are on Twitter at Baseline Feed. We are Twitter is Baseline Feed Pod. Instagram is Baseline Feed. We are on Patreon as well, and on iHeart, on Spotify, Acast, and I know I'm forgetting one, but there's another one. But we're everywhere. The goal is to take over the planet.
You're not supposed to tell people that on the air.
Crap.
Sorry.
Too late.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It will.
That's fantastic. Well, CM, Tanner, thank you guys so very much for the time. I appreciate it. And I just can't wait to see, I can't wait to have you guys back on in like a year. And,
sure.
And, we'll be like, let's just say it now. You're going to be back on in a year, and it'll be like.
With big heads.
Yes.
Our heads will be large. Yes.
They won't even fit on the screen. I would have to be like, back up. All right, now bring him in.
Back it up.
God damn it.
All right, you take care of yourself, man.
Thank you.
This was fun.
All right, folks, there you have it. My chat with Tanner Wood and CM Peters of the Baseline Feed podcast. Go check out Baseline Feed. They're a badass podcast. They only have a couple episodes out right now, but I can tell you they have a lot of great stuff coming. They're going to be working with a lot of very talented and experienced voice actors and authors, but then also some new voice actors and authors who really deserve the support and deserve a chance that they really haven't been given yet. So it's really such a fun concept for a show. And it's something I really truly believe in and putting my full support behind, because they really deserve to be a huge podcast. And I hope it happens for them. And they're going to have my support and my love and affection because they're my buddies. So big shout out again to Tanner and CM, not only for their support of this show, but coming on and for what they're doing with Baseline Feed. The future is very bright. Just like the future is very bright for the people who support this show on Patreon. My hotheads! We have my man, the myth, the legend, thy Lord himself, Mr. Scotty D. Scotty been a longtime friend of mine, and he is a wonderful human being, badass musician, badass overall human. So huge shouts to my man Sky. You know I love you, buddy. Hope to get to Thea soon. Now that we're getting into the spring months and things of that nature here in Ontario, I'm sure I will be running into you soon. But big shout outs to you. Thank you for all your support of this podcast. Basically from day one, really one of my OG patrons. So thank you very much, my man. And as well, a humongous shout out to the Grey Rooms podcast for their patronage of this show and all of their support. You guys know how much I love the Grey Rooms. I mean, we talked about it on this episode. I love the Grey Rooms, not just because they are patrons, but because it is my favorite podcast. And if I'm wearing headphones and you ask me what I'm listening to, there is a pretty darn good chance that I'm going to be like, I'm listening to the Grey Rooms. It's like, aren't you all caught up on that? And I'll be like, yes, but I like to do this thing where I go back and just listen to some of my favorite episodes over and over again. Don't ask why. It's like a comfort thing. I don't know. It's, I just love it so much. And it's such a fantastic podcast. And they're such great, wonderful people over there. And they have been instrumental in me hitting my goal, which was hit actually a couple of months ago. And on that note, I would like to kind of officially announce two things. Number one, I now have a Discord. And if you are on Discord and you want to come hang out on the Honda Show Discord, come jump in. You know, obviously I'm still getting things kind of figured out, but I did my first live stream on Discord the other night. That was a lot of fun. Big shouts to my boy Josh from Still Learning Podcast, Tanner NCM also, who both came and hung out while I was actually editing their episode. So that was kind of a fun thing. Tanner was like, this is so weird. I'm listening to you edit myself. Like, what the hell is this? So that was a lot of fun. And we had a great conversation after. We were on for like, gosh, I think we were on until like 12:30 at night or something like that. So it was like 3 or 4 hours of just fun live stream hanging out. So come join the Discord. It is 100% free. But if you are a patron of The Hodder Show, there is a separate Discord which you will be added to once you join in the Discord and say, hey, I'm a patron. Here's the proof. But I mean, I'll know who you are once you join in and let me know who you are. If you have a screen name or whatever, I will add you in. And there's going to be fun things on that, like there's exclusive behind-the-scenes content. There's going to be live editing of the Patreon shows, which I'm going to talk about in a second. So that is going to be a lot of fun. And other kind of fun, exclusive stuff that's going to be coming down the pipeline as we go here. I am going to be setting up a new goal on Patreon because, yes, now I have this wonderful program that I am using. Still kind of getting the bugs worked out with this wonderful new program because it's been a while since I've used it. But getting Adobe Audition has been a game changer for me, and I'm so excited. I feel like my audio has already stepped up a little bit, as well as with some help from the Jason Wilson from the Grey Room. So big shouts to him. And, I really feel like I'm just going to keep getting better and better because that's what I should be doing when I have people that are paying patronage to my podcast and supporting me. I want to keep getting better. I want to keep getting better for you. And the second announcement that I would like to make is, so I was originally going to do, if you watched my live stream, you heard the two shows I was going to do, one of which was going to be like a gaming video podcast type thing, which is basically me just streaming and doing commentary. And as much fun as that would be, and I was excited about it, I've kind of realized that, like, you know what? Everyone and their freaking grandma is doing that specific type of content. And the games I play that I like to play, I don't think anyone's really going to care that much about them. You know, if I'm being brutally honest. So it's like, I don't really think that's content. I might still do the Hodder Plays thing. If anyone's interested in that, I might do live streams on Discord and stuff of me just hanging out and gaming, just for something fun to do. But I'm not going to make it like an official thing. So I'm going to be replacing that show with something that is in the very final stages of the kind of pre-production phase. And then I'm going to start just cranking stuff out. It is going to be a monthly show because I work 7 days a week and my time is already getting very limited. And this podcast is my main focus. But once we get the ball rolling in the next, by the end of this month, you will for sure have a episode of this particular podcast out that I'm going to talk about. And I'm really, really excited about it because it is something that I have basically teased about doing for the last like 3 to 4 years. Because if you guys have noticed, I have become obsessed with horror narration and things of that nature. And some of you may be aware that I do some horror writing for my Reddit account, The Dread Files. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing a horror narration podcast where I'm going to narrate creepy stories, creepypastas, even some like folklore, urban legend type stuff, just random scary stories. And it's going to be done fully produced. I'm going to have, it's going to be nice and clean. It's going to be presented well. I might have some sound effects if it needs it, some spooky music in the background, kind of like what I did for my Halloween special this past year. But it's going to be stories that you may know if you're into that kind of stuff from the internet and from folklore and urban legends. So that's going to be really, really fun. That's all I'm going to say about it right now. But I'm really, really excited for this project. And I really, really think you guys are going to enjoy it once it comes out. And I might do other stories too. Maybe that aren't as like creepy. Maybe they're just like random folklore type stories. Something to think about. So if you have a story you'd like to hear me read for that, hit me up. Let me know because I will definitely add it to the pile of stories I'm going to be doing. And the other podcast, for those of you who are not aware and didn't watch the live stream, is called Let's Have a Beer. And it was essentially going to be me doing Mikes and Beers-esque interviews, but they were going to be only for the patrons. So it was going to be, basically, I was going to like get half drunk and then come on the show and talk to somebody. So it was going to be just like a fun, loose kind of thing. And that is still going to happen. However, the logistics of, I really want to do it in person with multi-camera setups and stuff like that. I really want to go all out for this show. I don't want to do it over Zoom. And the logistics of making that happen right now have been a lot trickier than I thought it was going to be. Still, just with the way the world is, the climate of the C word and all that stuff. It's been a little trickier to set that up. So that is for sure coming. Rest assured, I have a couple of guests lined up. We just need to kind of get things figured out for that. But you will see that as soon as I possibly can get it to you. But you will have content coming, exclusive content just for the patrons coming by the end of this month, as well as behind the scene videos and things of that nature. We're going to start rolling all that out. So thank you for your patience. And I cannot wait to get into all of that. Now, I have been talking for almost 10 fucking minutes now. So I am going to sign off here. I apparently had a lot to say to you guys. Jesus, I apologize. I'm over here like, I sound like Rob Flynn or Jamie Jasta. Jesus Christ. No, that's just jokes, folks. Huge shout outs to Rob Flynn and Jamie Jasta of, No Fucking Regrets with Rob Flynn, one of my favorite podcasts, and of course the Josta Show, where I stole my name from, one of my favorite podcasts. Just jokes. They do the intro, outro, elongated styles, and I do really enjoy them. But I am not Rob Flynn or Jamie Josta Show. I'm going to sign off because I don't have anything else to say. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, comment if you enjoyed it, and leave a rating if you can. It means the world to me. Thank you so very much, and I'll catch you next time on The Hodder Show. Take it easy, guys. Oh, shit. I almost forgot. Fist bump. Mic hit. Peace out, y'all.